afternoon. So we're back on the air this afternoon, which was originally scheduled to be a comprehensive rezoning commercial, industrial, and employment campus district work session. But we've added a little something to it because we want to make sure that our citizens remain up to date on all things COVID. And we've got some changes that came across from Annapolis, and we want to discuss those. And we also want to just take the opportunity to get some up-to-date numbers from Ed Singer. So this is a thrown-in extra open session. So when I passed the gavel to Rothstein last week, disregard. I'm now going to throw it at him virtually after this one. All right. Let's rise for the pledge and have a moment of silence for all that have lost their lives in this pandemic and all that are on the front lines. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice. All right, thank you. That was well done. We had, in the spirit of the holiday season where you hear lots of great music, we had the pledge being said by both Frazier and Swam and Wance. So all three of us.
It's like a chorus.
Really, it's like your holiday chorus, right?
Except not in tune.
Wait a minute. I'll speak for yourself.
You were good.
You were good.
You were good.
Okay. Let's jump right into it. And first of all, before we get to Ed, anybody have anything for Priority Carol? For the last time this year, you get a chance to prioritize Carol. So, Eric Boucher, we'll start with you.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to go over the fact that even though the holiday season is very festive for most people and they have a wonderful time, there's a lot of people out there that suffer from depression. I know it firsthand. I've recovered from it. But I know there's a lot of people out there who have not only lost loved ones unexpectedly from the COVID pandemic, but the opioid epidemic and a whole host of other things. And I know it's a very trying time for a lot of people out there. So if you know someone out there that's lost a loved one over this year, please be there for them, talk to them, let them know that they are loved and support, because after all, this is one suicide spike. And any help we as fellow citizens can offer or their friends and neighbors and family, please step up to the plate and do so, because this can be a very trying time for a lot of people. With that, I say God bless, Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Eric. Commissioner Weaver.
Well, I just want to thank everyone who participated in Wreaths Across America last week. It was a tremendous turnout, I think, for all the cemeteries that were involved in it. I had one at Western Chapel, almost forgotten about cemetery there. I think there's 14 veterans, but they had a lot of people show up, and it was a really moving ceremony they had and what they were doing. It was actually what Wreaths Across America is about, remembering and honoring the people who were have fallen and where they're buried. So I was really impressed with those ceremonies. And I know many of you were at another cemetery elsewhere, and it was a great event on Saturday. So, and Frazier, Mr. Commissioner Frazier, I understand you got some votes out of the cemetery.
Oh boy.
Wherever I can.
Better be careful, Weaver, because there's been talk about some sort of a curtain thing. I'm just saying. Commissioner Frazier, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, I'll go next. And I was at the cemetery collecting names now. I was at the cemetery for Wreaths Across America. Very nice. It was great. And actually afterwards, I spent the next couple hours with Lieutenant Governor walking around downtown Westminster. We started the Boys and Girls Club and went to several businesses, downtown Westminster, talk to business owners, see how things are going. So it was time well spent. Governor said, no, he didn't. Never mind. It was a great day. Say happy holidays, everyone. Enjoy the vacation. Enjoy time, I guess, with your immediate family. Be vigilant. Wear the mask. Wash your hands. Social distance. Thank you.
You went unscathed there, Weaver. Just letting you know, unscathed. Okay, Commissioner Ed Rothstein. Ed, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and trust me, we have plenty of time to get Commissioner Weaver. You know, maybe just not now, but plenty of time. With what Commissioner Boucher shared, these are challenging times, you know, and it is, if you see something, say something and do something. Not necessarily doing it on Facebook or social media, because we don't need more stuff being posted that's just going to bring folks down and frustrating folks. You know, let's take care of each other. And one thing of note that I did not know, 16 homeless passed away this past year in Carroll County. And that is just incredible. I had no idea, but it was shared with us earlier today, 16 homeless. So if you've got the opportunity to reach out and take care of somebody, please do. Yeah, Wreaths Across America was fantastic, always is every year. I really enjoy the community bonding together for events like that. And those celebrating, wishing you a very Merry Christmas, safe travels if you're traveling, and take care of yourself, your family, and your friends. That's all.
Very, very well said. And for me, I will echo the Wreaths Across America. I pulled into little old Pleasant Valley Cemetery Saturday at about 11:45, and there were close to, if not a little bit more than 100 people there. It was unbelievable, and everybody was masked. They talk about the down home feel. Now I know you guys were at Meadow Branch, which was a very great ceremony. You know, you had the pomp and circumstance there. At Pleasant Valley, the Girl Scouts said the Pledge of Allegiance. It was fantastic. Everyone sang the national anthem together. The remarks were just incredible by the speaker, Commissioner Wance. They were just incredibly off the top. Wait, what? Oh, anyway, my brother played taps. It was great, good home, down home feeling. And everybody there was there for the mission. And that mission was to honor those that allowed us to be able to do Wreaths Across America. It was just a great day. So kudos to everybody. And Ed, your reference to social media, that probably isn't going to stop. We keep seeing knuckleheads out there, some elected knuckleheads that are putting just ridiculous cartoons on there. But you know what? Comedy relief, that's what I call them. So whatever, when I do see them, luckily not many people pay attention to the absurdity, which is a good thing. Which leads me to the last thing. Hey, there was a house fire, Eric, down in your district last night or the night before. And just a reminder to everybody, be very, very careful. Got a lot of Christmas trees inside. A lot of folks got live Christmas trees this year. Make sure you're safe with all of those activities. Pay attention. Make sure your smoke detector's in working order. And be mindful, be safe, be aware of your surroundings. And just, you know, I'd love to see our volunteer firefighters have a chance to enjoy Christmas Eve and Christmas Day at home. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? So I echo my colleagues in wishing everyone a great holiday and safe, and we'll see you in 2021. Before we get to Mr. Singer, Roberta Wyndham, do you have anything that you would like to say, you know, like how great the commissioners are, or, you know, anything like that? I mean, you know, feel free. You can ad lib, but feel free.
Well, no, it's been a great year, the weirdest year of my life, weirdest year of probably pretty much everyone's life, but we've made it through, and we're going to make it through the next few months as the vaccine rolls out. And as always, it's been a pleasure working with you, and look forward to 2021. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year to you all. And thank you.
Hey, one last thing I forgot. If it's not cloudy tonight, and I'm looking out the window, make sure you look to the western sky at dusk, because Jupiter and Saturn will be like right on top of one another. And that hasn't happened since, I think, like 400 years ago. Somewhere around when Weaver was.
Not that long ago.
No, not that long ago. Okay.
I believe
Long
it's
ago.
800 years.
I think it's close to 800 years. Yeah.
Is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
800. Yeah, 800. So
Yeah.
that's kind of crazy. So I'm hoping that we can see it tonight. So western sky, in the low western sky, and look for that. It's been tapped as being the Christmas star. So,
Yes, it has.
yeah. So that let's hope that it's not cloudy. So hopefully, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go outside about 3:30, 3:45, and maybe the reflection will. Never mind. I'm just going to let it go. I thought Rothstein would pick up on that. But whatever. All right. Where's Ed Singer?
I thought you were going to ask Weaver looked better this time or last time. No.
Good
There's Ed
afternoon,
Singer.
Commissioners.
There's Ed Singer. Hi, Ed Singer. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I'm sorry you're stuck with me this afternoon because my 1 o'clock meeting got pushed to 3:30. So you don't get the good fortune of having Maggie, because I know she's much nicer and easier to talk to than I am. So you're stuck with me.
You're absolutely
I've got an abbreviated data presentation for you today, and because I think we just mainly wanted to talk about, kind of get everybody up to date on what's happening with some of the advisories and vaccine and testing and all that kind of stuff. So that the data pieces, we've kept that relatively brief today, and I'll hit that in just a minute. But I did want to mention the two things that came out of the governor's most recent press conference was there's a travel order that essentially requires, and the important things for folks to look for, and this, we've got a link to the travel order on our website, is if Marylanders are traveling to our adjacent jurisdictions, that includes DC, Virginia, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Delaware, that they're not required to quarantine and test when they're coming home. Now, this most recent thing that the governor put out and the Secretary of Health put out does make it an order for people who are traveling to those jurisdictions that are not adjacent to Maryland to quarantine and to be tested when they return. They have to be tested within 3 days of returning to the state of Maryland or after they return, and the order requires them to quarantine until they've received their test results. So it's one of those things that I think it's won't be the easiest thing from an enforcement standpoint, but law enforcement and local health departments are being asked to enforce this order if the situations come up. So we're just asking citizens to be cooperative and do the right thing. And if you've traveled outside the region, outside of those areas that are mentioned in the order, and you return to Maryland, that you're supposed to get tested and quarantined. That said, it doesn't go the opposite way. Anybody that's not a Maryland resident that's traveling into Maryland to stay here, this doesn't have to do with people who are coming to work from Pennsylvania or whatnot, but if people are traveling here, they're supposed to get tested. Same thing, either 3 days in advance of traveling here or when they get here, and then quarantine until they get test results. So that's an order that's out there, and it's expected to be followed, and we're dealing with that even with our staff and everybody else as to what exactly that means, and it's a requirement in the state of Maryland and has the effect of law. The other piece that's out there is the Secretary of Health issued an advisory on gatherings, and that is that they're recommending that people not have social gatherings of more than 10 people. We're still seeing a lot of spread in gatherings in people's homes and things of that nature, and that's why this advisory is out there. This is not an order where it's enforceable by law, but it's an advisory. So really trying to avoid these gatherings, large gatherings, as we're seeing the spread in our community is still happening and is pretty well out of control at this point. I will say, and I think I mentioned last week that, the one thing that had been good here in Carroll County is that our metrics had generally been lower than the state averages pretty much throughout most of the pandemic. And over the last week, our metrics, our positivity rate and our cases per 100,000 have been over the state averages. So we're no longer in a better position than most of the other jurisdictions in the state. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I still think people are doing the right things, and we're still having the majority of people be very cooperative and taking steps to slow the transmission of this disease. We've got some months to get through this yet until we get people vaccinated and really can stop the spread in our community and get back to more normal life. But we're still going to have a period of time where we have to deal with this. So I'm going to go ahead and share some data real quick.
Ed, before you get into the slides, with the information you provided, the travel order goes through 31 January, correct?
Yes, Commissioner, that's correct.
And also, those that are traveling outside of the adjacent jurisdictions to Maryland and requiring for testing and sequestering themselves or quarantining themselves, if they are government officials, that leave or the time they're away is on them. It's not administrative leave, and it's not leave that's just permissive from the organization, correct?
That's the way we've been interpreting it, and that's my understanding. We've told staff here at the health department, and it's going to be up to every organization to deal with this from a employer-employee relations type of thing. But here at the health department, we've told staff is to make sure that you plan for, if you're going to travel and you're going to be away for a week in Maine or wherever you're going to go, and you're coming back to Maryland and you have to quarantine, you're not sick, so it's not sick leave, and you're not being required to the quarantine because you've been in close contact with somebody under a quarantine order, but you're being required under this executive order to do this, and you're making a conscious decision. So we've told people to plan to take their leave if they're planning to travel out of state and come back.
Right.
Now, obviously, you may have situations where some employers may be able to allow employees to telework, and you can successfully quarantine and telework, but those that can't, a lot of my staff, I need them on site, and I need them at testing sites, and I need them at vaccination sites, and things where they're public-facing services. You obviously need those staff. They need to plan appropriately so they don't impact their employers. And I know a lot of our employers have been working very hard to make sure that people maintain their employment and things of that nature. So we need to do those employers justice as well, and make sure that we're supporting them as employees to make sure that operations can continue in some of those critical services.
I've been very supportive, as we all have, from the Board of Commissioners and all of the executive orders coming from the governor and administration. I am really challenged on this one because of the ability to adhere to it is, I don't want to say impossible, but we do not have, within the county, the resources to adhere to a law like this or an executive order. As opposed to an advisory, use your best judgment. That's what the advisory does. But once you made it into an executive order, the expectation is that we adhere to it with the resources we have available to us. And the county doesn't have that. So I'm very challenged to, to move forward, except to just turn, a cheek to it. And I don't want to do that either, because we've been very adamant that we were going to adhere to all the executive orders and laws coming out of our governor. This one makes it very, very difficult. I don't know what more to say about it, except that, we as leaders owe it to the community, saying whether we agree to it. I agree to the sentiment of it and the intent of it, but I do not agree to the ability to enforce it. And that's where I'm challenged. So, and it's not for you, Ed, it's more for the rest of us, to come out and either say something about it or stay mute about it. I don't believe it's appropriate that we stay mute about it. So I'll leave it at that at this point.
And Commissioner, if I could just, I'll echo a little bit of think of what you're feeling about this. And I just don't think that it's very practical for us to be doing widespread enforcement on this. We're counting on people to do the right thing and to follow what the intent of this order is. I mean, I guess we're going to be expected to, if we get certain complaints, to at least investigate them. And we've had this discussion with the state police and Maryland State Police and Sergeant Nelson, who's the liaison to the governor's office. But I think everybody realizes that it's not practical that we're going to be going out there and trying to figure this out. And that I guess we're going to have to deal with concerns if they're reported to us specifically. All right. Anything else before I move on to this? Just a real quick share of the data that we have.
No, I think I don't have anything more on that. I think you said it right. And I appreciate your sentiments on that, Ed, but we've always relied on folks to do the right thing here. And I think we should continue to do that because that's it's becoming more and more apparent that we have to do the right thing as we continue to see more and more people either become infected or infect other folks. And I don't know how much more we can say about that. I mean, we're getting ready to put a policy out here, but it's just for us here at the county office building, reminding our folks here to adhere to what he's saying. So, in the interest of not hiring a group of people to go out and see where you just came from, I think it ends with, please, we're asking you to do the right thing based on the latest directive.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree with adhering to the intent of the executive order. I would have expected him to have provided an advisory as opposed to an executive order with what was shared, because as an executive order, there's an expectation of enforcement, and it makes it very challenging on us or others to meet that expectation as opposed to an advisory. I 100% agree with the intent. And I 100% agree that we've been doing really well because we've been meeting that intent. But this is not an advisory. It's the law. It's a law that he's putting in place. And unless we're willing to resource that law, it doesn't really, serve its purpose as a law. I mean, I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, but we just have to recognize, understand the intent, and do the best we can to safeguard ourselves as a county and a community, but understand that the ability to resource this executive order is very, very challenging.
Yep. Okay.
Great,
All right,
Commissioner.
Ed?
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Just moving on, I just wanted to quickly share a little bit of data. Our cases continue to be extremely high over the last few weeks. Last week's cases totals were probably a little bit lower because inclement weather on Thursday caused us to cancel testing at our testing center, and it would also limit access to testing for folks at other facilities just because of the difficulty in getting out there and certain sites being closed. So the other thing that I think is worth mentioning is, and we went through a long period over the summertime where we didn't have a lot of deaths, and we've been averaging about one death in Carroll County due to COVID every day, and that's a lot. Very, very significant and very concerning. We're probably, from my opinion, other than what we saw with some of the really bad outbreaks in the nursing homes, we're at the worst spot that we've been during this pandemic. And I know we all expected to see a second spike as we got into the winter, but I don't think anybody expected the second spike to be this much higher than where we started off at the beginning of the pandemic. I guess we were pretty effective in crushing the curve, as we said early on, but it did have this this second round that we're seeing is really high, and the vaccine's coming, but I do think, from what I'm hearing from the CDC and from other folks out there that are experts in public health, that we probably are going to expect to see this for at least another month to month and a half before we can get enough people vaccinated and get them some level of immunity, and then we can start hoping that we're going to push this down and start seeing these cases decline for good. Hospital usage, the ICU bed usage is something that we've been tracking on a regular basis, and the hospital's been pretty taxed this month. Additionally, the number of people that they've had in the hospital for COVID was the highest over the last couple of weeks, and they've seen during the entire pandemic. So they've been very challenged by the number of patients that they're seeing. And I know, Commissioner Wance, you had talked about the last time we spoke about the stress on EMS and everybody, and I've talked to David Coe and the EMS folks, and they're quite frankly worn out from the number of transports they're dealing with. So this thing has been stressing all of our systems to a certain extent. One thing I wanted to talk to you all about today is the demand at the Ag Center for our testing has been really high. And I personally had an experience this weekend in trying to get somebody a test through a rapid test through a pharmacy or through urgent care or whatnot. And testing there is the availability is relatively low. We really we don't have the ability to increase our capacity at the Ag Center any more than where we are. We've gone from where we originally started at 100 tests per day up to having 250 test slots per day. The average in late August and early September was around 95 people tested per day at the test site. In December, we're averaging 212 tests per day, and that's we upped the slots to 250 in the middle of the month. So I would imagine that our capacity is increased and our averages are going to go up. But one of the things that we've seen is the reason we've been allowing through a form on our website for people to ask to be tested for COVID, and the reason we did that was we really want people to go to their primary care physicians or consult with their doctor and have their doctor advise them on matters related to their health. But we didn't want to have people in Carroll County having barriers to being able to get a test, and needing a provider order to get a test was somewhat of a barrier to some people. So what we did was we had our providers here at the health department take these folks that submitted requests through our web form and enter them into the system, enter an order for a test so that they could go get tested, not only at our site, but any other testing site in the state of Maryland that offers this testing. So we're kind of looking at this and reevaluating things to a certain extent, because our priority needs to be for people who have been exposed and people who are sick, as far as our clinicians entering people for orders for tests. We've had people who are looking to travel to the Bahamas or to Florida or whatever that have been taking advantage of our system and being tested that way. And that's not really what we intended it for. And we've also had people whose employers are requiring them to be routinely tested, taking advantage of our clinicians entering them on a regular basis and being tested at our site. And really, that needs to be the employer's responsibility if they're requiring routine testing. So we're going to be, this doesn't limit the access to our site, but what we're going to be doing is having our clinicians prioritize the people who are sick and those people that have been exposed. And those other things, people should be going to their own primary care physician or looking for tests in the private sector for those things that are more for convenience than preventing the spread of the illness. So we're you know, people who need, we're expecting to see an increase even with the governor's order with people who need tests to return to work and that type of thing too. So again, we're not limiting access to the testing site, but what we're doing is we're limiting who our clinicians are putting in. We're trying to serve the community and make sure we limit the spread in the community, and the purpose is to make sure that we get the people who are sick and need to be tested, or people who are exposed, that we can get them tested. And that's where our clinicians are going to be focusing. That's not to say that you can't get an order from your doctor to go to the Ag Center test site and get tested there. It's just that as a health department, that's what we're going to be focusing on. So before I move on from there, since this is a little bit of a change in how we're handling things, I just want to give you guys the opportunity to express any concerns or ask any questions that you might have about that before I move on to the next slide.
Yeah, you have to do what is best for you to continue to your procedures out there. So I'm good with this, Ed. You know it better than we do. So I don't think it's going to create much of a hardship. It's just going to be a little bit more focused for folks that want to get that test. So I don't have a problem with it. Anybody else? Okay. You can move on, Ed.
Thanks, commissioners. Get back down here. So, of course, the next thing that we're all getting a lot of questions about is is vaccinations. And I've got up here a link to our site that there's a lot of information on there. And I don't want to go into any great detail about this, about, you know, why this vaccine is actually effective, how it works, what it means, you know, how it works, I guess, biologically. What the studies mean, what this use agreement is, the emergency use agreement is, and how the drug was studied, and how we know it's safe, and that type of thing. So I just want to make sure that people know where to turn for these resources. You can go to the CDC site, or you can come to the health department site. We try to put it all together there in one place for people. I guess the thing that we're getting the most questions about is everybody wants to, you know, but you got about half the people that want to be vaccinated, and about half people don't. But the ones that want to be vaccinated really want to be vaccinated, and they want to be in the priority groups. And one of the things that we've struggled with as health officers is the state's vaccination plan and the CDC's vaccination plan and what ACIP has out there are all a little bit different. And we're trying to, we want to be consistent what we're doing statewide from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So the health officers spent a couple hours last night just talking through where we think our priorities should be, and who's going to get vaccinated first, and that type of thing. And we have 100 doses coming to us on Thursday, and want to let the public know that this is the first round that the health department will be getting. I imagine we're going to see that ramp up very quickly, and we're going to start seeing hundreds of doses coming to us every week. And we're planning for vaccination clinics, and we're trying to figure out how to get it out there the best. But from my perspective, the people that we're going to focus on the first is people who are potentially exposed on a regular basis to people who have COVID-19. The hospitals and the congregate living facilities, such as nursing homes and DDA facilities and things like that, are being taken care of by the pharmacies, and the hospitals being taken care of by the hospital, and they'll also be taking care of their affiliated practices. The health department's responsible for dealing with our local detention center, our homeless population, other sites like that. Our EMS, our first responders, our health department staff, and our non-affiliated practices and urgent cares that aren't going to be vaccinated by the hospital. So our highest priority as we go into this, I'm looking at people who are having regular contact because they're testing people who are COVID positive, those type of individuals, and those EMS people who are going to be the first people that we're going to vaccinate that are transporting these patients on a regular basis. And even though those people are wearing PPE is never perfect, and there's still a risk that they can be infected. So as we move into this, the health officers are trying to make sure we have a consistent list that we can use throughout our jurisdiction. So there's a lot of questions about where do dentists fit in, and where do where do morticians fit in, and teachers are essentially in phase 2, like other critical care workers and things like that. But I've got a lot of questions about teachers. What we're essentially looking at in phase 1 is medical providers and people who are going to have an increased risk of contact with people who have COVID-19 and first responders. So we're working on that, and we're going to continue to work through plans. And as those populations are coming up, we're going to make sure we do everything we can to reach out to those populations and ensure that people are offered the opportunity to get vaccinated. Our next round after those people who have a high risk of exposure is going to be people who are medically likely to become to have negative health outcomes from COVID-19, our elderly population and people with serious underlying health conditions. And we've been reaching out to medical practices already and asking them to start trying to come up with lists of folks that they see as patients that they would think would need to be prioritized for vaccination. And we hope to work with our medical practices to identify those people and to get them vaccinated. So, our critical infrastructure workers, our teachers and all that, they're a little bit further down the line. We're probably a couple of months out from that yet, but we're going to continue to plan, and we're going to continue to prioritize. And as people meet the need to be vaccinated in their priority group, we're going to get it out to them. So that's where this kind of stands right now. Again, I encourage people to look at our website. If they have questions about the vaccine, look at the CDC website. I'm 100% confident that this vaccine is going to be effective, and I'm very confident that the studies show that there are very mild side effects and very limited risk. And as in everything we deal with in science, there's a certain level of risk and a certain level of benefit. And I personally believe, and I'll be getting vaccinated as soon as it's available to me, that the risk of taking the vaccine is far outweighed by the benefit that it's going to have for our community, so that we can get back to life as we regularly knew it. I miss traveling. I miss seeing my family. I miss seeing my friends. And getting us back to as close to normal as we can get as quickly as we possibly can. It'll help the economy. It'll help our community. And I know there's a lot of misinformation out there about concerns about the vaccine, and people have to make their own personal decisions. But I'm encouraging people, for the good of our community at large, the vaccinations are what's going to bring this to an end.
Ed, is there any medical benefit to vaccinating the elderly who are presently infected, or is that doesn't matter? Does that help with them?
Well, I mean, if people are presently infected, you can't uninfect them. So if you've already got the disease, it's not going to help do anything to treat the disease. There are drugs out there that are available now, and therapies out there that are available now to try to help people get through this disease without the negative outcomes we were seeing earlier on. There are a lot more therapeutic drugs that help us treat this disease much better. But vaccinating somebody after they're already infected is it's the old saying, doesn't do you any good to close the gate after the horse is out of the barn. So no, that doesn't help.
That's a good saying.
Anything else on the vaccines that you all would like to talk about?
I don't think so. Anybody got anything? Questions,
Nope.
comments?
That's it for my slides. So if there's anything else that you all would.
Hey, Ed, I may have missed it. The percentage positivity rate, what is it, Carroll County? 8 something or?
I think we lost him.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. I don't know if he said or not. I know he said it was high, and it's been higher. I just don't know what it was.
He's coming back. I don't believe he said, I didn't hear him say it, but he's coming back. He must have had.
Yeah. Wrong button issues. You'll have these things. It's been a long week already, and it's only Tuesday.
Ed, I asked, what is the positivity rate in Carroll County?
So our 7-day average right now, as of today, is 8. We've been up as high as 8.7 over the last week or so, and it tends to fluctuate a little bit, but as of today, it's 8.0. Our cases per 100,000 have been hanging somewhere between 37 and 40 on a 7-day average over the last week.
Okay,
And
thanks.
what's the state average?
The state average today was 7.5%, and I think the cases per 100,000 was around 36.
Okay. Just a good follow-up to keeping it real here, that we're higher than the state. So, okay. Any other questions for Ed? Any other discussion with COVID? I've got one thing. I don't want to delay this, but and Ed, you can stay on for this one. Just, I don't know that you'll have anything to do with it, but you can hear it. I know that several of our surrounding jurisdictions have put a cap on the food delivery apps. I know that our colleague in Baltimore County just did that, and you can't collect more than 15% commission from the restaurant on these apps. And I'm talking about the Grubhub and the you know, there's a bunch of them. There's 2 or 3 of them right now, and a lot of our restaurants are using them, and it's becoming a concern for the restaurants because it technically is cutting into their profit for those folks who use them. Now, I don't know how many folks use them here in Carroll. I don't know how prevalent it is. I would like to think that most folks, when they order a carryout, maybe are going to the particular place themselves and picking it up. And then this doesn't apply there. But food for thought, as surrounding jurisdictions do it, food for thought. How you like that? Like that little theme I got on there? I think we ought to look at that, because if other jurisdictions are putting a cap on it around us and we're not, that could be a little bit troublesome. So I don't know who to ask to look at that. Maybe, I hate to put more on our economic development folks when it comes to our restaurant thing. Maybe the Rob Burks of the world, or I don't know.
I think we'd have to ask our lawyer, see if we could have the ability to do that ourselves, because we're
Okay.
commissioners, number one. The other ones that are doing it's I think City of Baltimore, maybe Baltimore County.
Yeah.
But I've heard, but they have different form.
Yeah.
We might have to see
Yeah,
if we
okay.
can do that, or maybe have to go to our state delegations, because I'm not sure if we have the authorities commissioners to do that.
Okay. Is Tim on here? I see his name.
Yeah.
Hey, there's Tim Burke. Tim, did you hear that conversation?
I did, and that sounds like they use their police powers in their charter to do that. We do not have those, so we would have to go to our friends in Annapolis for that authority. What are you laughing at, Commissioner Boucher?
We don't have a charter.
Okay.
That would
Um,
require legislative action.
Okay.
Commissioner, I did just want to chime in and say, the need for the use of these types of delivery services kind of increased as people have been in quarantine or isolation, because if you want to order carry out and you're not supposed to go out, and people are trying to follow the rules so they don't spread the disease, they may want something from someplace that doesn't offer delivery. So the demand for those types of services is really going up. And I guess, unfortunately, I think those the people who provide those services have taken unfair advantage of it. But I understand if there's nothing that can be done, that nothing can be done immediately.
Okay.
I was wondering about the restaurant association. If someone's out there in the restaurant association, if they could chime in with us some way, because I think they're the ones that should lead this if something needs to be done.
Yeah. Okay. It was just, I just wanted to plant the seed, if you will, because I would hate to see our restaurants be taken advantage of by these groups if they keep putting up their commission. You know, and then what does that do? Then that has our restaurants putting up their costs to cover the commission for that delivery service. So it's sort of a never ending issue. So, I'm not I'm, first of all, timely. It wouldn't happen anyway with Annapolis. So, maybe we can just politely hope that our folks that are doing those services don't take advantage of our restaurants here in Carroll. And to your thought, Eric, I'll put it out there. If any of the restaurants are seeing that kind of activity, I would ask that they share that with us so that we can then maybe address it, and you know, plant that seed with our folks in Annapolis.
Commissioner Wance, you're more than a shiny head.
Whatever. Anyway, whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll just put that out there, and maybe, you know, if we hear some of that, we'll try to address it in some manner. All right. Anything else? COVID.
Well, we did want to talk. I want to bring up the fact that these, I guess, social gatherings for indoors has changed from 25 to 10. And I think the last time we met, or whatever it was a while ago, we put that same restriction of 25 on our recreational sports if they want to have practices and so forth. And it was at that time still for social gatherings. Now, since the social gatherings have gone from 25 to 10, I think we should limit our recreational sports practices to only 10 people at a time with all the other same restrictions. We've been following, we've been following that pretty consistently with what the governor has done and so forth. I think it's time to do the exact same thing from 25 people, either in the gym or the wrestling room or wherever it happens to be. That's our facilities. But also, you know, it's 10 for social gatherings inside as well. So I'm thinking that even if you have a sports outside of our facilities, if you rent out a facility, you should probably follow the same thing, although we can't enforce that one. But I think for us in our recreation department, anybody that's affiliated with us using our facilities, we should cut it to 10 people for practices right now until the order changes again.
Okay. Thoughts?
I will say, Commissioner, just to chime in that, and Tim, you can certainly comment on this if you disagree, but I believe you do have the authority under the governor's executive order, if you wanted to restrict that throughout the county, that you could, because the governor gives you the authority to put in place any more stringent restrictions that you would want to put in place. But that's a decision you need to think about and decide if you wanted to make that. So you're not limited on that, but it is a different direction than you've taken in the past.
He does. And Ed, you're right. I don't mean to be jumping over Tim, but you're right. The governor does allow for us or any other jurisdiction to be stricter. With that said, Commissioner Frazier, I disagree with you. And it's not often I do, but this is one time. But this is one time I do. It is an advisory. And I believe that we should keep it as an advisory as long as they can maintain what they believe the organization that's holding the practices or competition, a safe, distance and healthy situation, then they should do that. If it was anything more than advisory, I'd be obviously much more, strict on it. But because it's an advisory, I think we should leave it as that. So that's my 2 cents.
I'll have to agree with Commissioner Rothstein's 2 cents on this. Unless there's some sort of data coming out that's showing a spike caused by these gatherings and sporting events, I don't think it's really necessary to take action on it. However, if it does come up that this is a point of contention and causing issues, then we should look at that data and then revisit this in the future.
Well, my concern is that, from what I understand, over half the people that get COVID has no signs of it at all. And the younger you are, the less chance you are having a sign. So if you're going to these practices, we're now allowing with 25 people, we did switch that, which was, I thought, a good move. People may be getting COVID, not even realizing it because they're asymptomatic and then taking it back home again. That's the problem. The problem isn't with the kids out there in basketball and wrestling and whatever else might be going on right now. I don't know. I don't know if indoor track is or not. I don't think so.
I don't
But
think so.
whatever else is going on is that most of them, or at least half of them, will be asymptomatic. They'll get it. They'll take it home to the people that are more susceptible to it. That's my concern with this. And I know it's an advisory from the governor, but I think cutting it back to 10 per practice, I just think it's the right thing to do. But we have a board of commissioners. We can go one way or the other, but those are my feelings. I think with the way the numbers are right now, we're not doing our job, number one, if we didn't talk about it. So at least we are discussing it. I would really like to see it go down to 10 though.
You know, I'll tell you, Dennis, I have the exact same concerns as you, and you're right. I believe we should be talking about it. I don't think it's the numbers kind of where Commissioner Boucher, you were going. I do think that it's more on, from my perspective, the advisory piece of this. And so I am torn because I have the same concerns you have, but because of the advisory approach, and I guess I'm still frustrated that there is an executive order about travel the way it was put out. I just recommend keeping it as advisory, and we've been strongly advised, but leave it to the organizations to do what they're going to do.
I have to say, as we look at the whole picture, I'm concerned about this, major concern about this. But here again, we don't have the enforcement capabilities. If we mandate something, I think advisory is about as far as we can go at this point, asking people to please adhere to these, do the best they possibly can. As the vaccine comes on board, I think this is going to be less and less. In 6 weeks from now, or 2 months from now, it's going to be a little less than it is now, or 6 months, whatever it's going to take for this vaccine to get into there. But right now, I like the advisory aspect.
So Commissioner
Okay,
Weaver, you
the
saying,
two of you are swaying me the other way because
Commissioner, go
it's
ahead.
going to be much longer than 6 weeks before vaccinations can take place. Carroll County is above the state average, with 8 to 8.5% compared to the state being 7.5. I think I do believe it should stay as an advisory, but I think we don't need to build any more argument to it. It's just, let's adhere to what the state is saying they're doing and stay status quo with what the state is trying to accomplish.
Well, the advisory from the state is for social gatherings. Are we willing, Commissioner Weaver, from what you just said, are we willing to put out an advisory that says for recreational activities, we're advising 10 or less per practices? There's an advisory, but that's not what the state says, but that's what we could say if we're willing to do that, at least. That way we're putting out there, we think it's a problem. I just think we need something more than what we have right now.
I don't have a problem with that.
I agree with that.
Yeah, reminding what the advisory is. I think that's important.
Yeah, but they're putting the for recreational sport practices, because it
Yeah.
doesn't say that right now.
Well, before we do that, my question is, and I think I asked this before, what's going on out here with recreational sports? I don't think there's much of anything going on.
I've heard that there are practices for both basketball and wrestling taking place.
Okay.
Now they may be taking place on their own, on private places or private gyms or whatever. But I have also have heard of some people getting the virus because of this.
Okay.
And I don't want to go into numbers and individuals and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
I have been hit. I've heard a bit about it.
okay.
And
Yeah, I
I
agree
do,
with you.
Commissioners, if I can chime in, that there are practices occurring in the facility that's owned by you at North Carroll and the facility that's owned by you at Robert Moton.
Well, that's true, but it's also other practices taking place at other facilities that we do not own.
Are they complying, Ed, to all the state restrictions?
So it's advisory. Again, you guys are having the discussion about what's advisory versus what the restrictions are. There are no restrictions on youth sports at this point in time. Nobody ever went back and looked at adjusting those. I mean, we have had discussions with the state about what would be appropriate for high school sports, and the recommendations from MDH and MSDE is that they would be in the same metrics they would be for returning to school in person, and we're not close to that. I just don't really think that that large competitive youth sports indoors this time. I mean, there's no way to have outdoor sports in the winter, and competitive wrestling and basketball indoors right now with the case rates that we're seeing is not very advisable. But it's so it's just a matter of what you want to do with it, how much you want to advise against it, or tell people that they can't. We have seen outbreaks, and Commissioner Fraser referred to some of that. Some of the specific data. We've seen some relatively large outbreaks because of practices occurring on private property, and some of those private things have shut down because of those outbreaks, but not all of them.
Unlike some that may have said about safety of our children in the community, I do believe that it is our responsibility to safeguard our youth and do the things that are appropriate. That's why we've been adhering to the state's guidelines. And I think, like Dennis, you said, let's stick to the state guidelines as an advisory to specifically with youth sports. And that's what we do. And then we just move forward.
Okay.
So what does that mean? So, all right, so if I make the motion, I guess, so I can get this clear in my mind, that we'll put out an advisory that for youth sports, we would advise of practices to be 10 or less insides for wrestling, basketball, or whatever youth sport is taking place. There might be something else going on as well. 10 or less, that's just an advisory from the Board of Commissioners. I put that as a motion.
And I'll second that.
Now, is that 10 or less to a room or to the whole building?
Well, like for the wrestling room or for the gymnasium or whatever other room that they're in. I mean, if there's walls in between and so forth, I think that's different. I don't want to get too technical, but.
I know, that's the problem here, because we do get technical in these things, so.
Right.
So,
People have to use
You
their best
have-
judgment.
well, I know. So, just putting it out as an advisory, not,
Right.
You got to do it. We're just advising you to utilize best practices, and we're advising that 10 or less should be in. That's what you're saying.
Yes, for youth sports.
In a particular area. I mean, we could say area. All right.
Well, I'm going to define area as
Well,
a gym or a
okay.
wrestling room or something like that, because I don't want people to say area. Well, area is half court. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right. I know. Yeah, it's true. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts on this? So this would be an advisory. Again, we don't want everybody to jump up and down, but we're advising based on the government guidelines of social gatherings of
Yes. 10 or less.
10 or less. So, okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So a couple, 3 weeks ago, you discussed the same kind of idea with Jeff Daggett about rec councils and usage of, and he put out, to the rec councils, sort of the best practices at the time. Would you want this to be communicated in that same way, or are you looking for a wider distribution information on this?
No, I think we're looking for the same thing. Right?
Yeah, I would think the
And
same
we're
thing.
only talking about the rec sports that we're responsible for.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So,
And plus, I mean, like, I don't want to get in the police mode to that's why it's an advisory, number one. And we're not going to go out and check the gyms. We'll put this out through Jeff again, put it out to all our rec sports and all of our councils and so forth, and go from there. I would like to think people do the right thing. Of course, that's not always the case, but I would like to think that, when you talk about people's health, let's get together and do this.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. I just don't want to make it in the interest of continuing our making sure we go to right to the governor's guidelines that he's given us. Making this an advisory for me is fine.
Okay.
We're advising you to utilize and put on there as well, utilizing best practices is very important as well. Common sense, best practices.
Right. So if the board puts to go this direction, I'll make sure Jeff Day gets out something.
And, we also have to, well, I don't want to say have to, but should say inside and outside facilities. And the reason I say that is the dog parks come underneath the rec councils. And so the South Carroll Dog Park, I know there are in many times more than a dozen folks out there. So just knowing that they best practice, they should be addressed. So there are indoor and outdoor facilities being used, even in the winter.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts on this? All right, I've got it as a motion, so we're going to have to make a.
There was a second.
Hey, I got a second. That's right. Yep. Okay. All right. Advising and best practices, and this still adheres to those guidelines. We're not doing anything
right
crazy here. It just adheres to them. All right. All those in favor? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, and again opposed.
I'll abstain from casting.
Okay.
You can't abstain.
All right. Okay.
Take a stand.
You'll work with Jeff, Roberta, to get that out, and just more. It's more so an important reminder as we see, maybe worded like that, as we see our positivity rate higher, almost by a point, than the state. This is really important. And it maybe would just be utilized as a sense of reminding to those best practices. That's the important part here. Not trying to hurt anybody or whatever, but man, it's important to pay attention. So anyway, okay.
Yeah, Dennis, thanks for bringing this up.
Sure. Okay. And I guess we can make that decision. We can't put a cap on anything else, but we can make that. Never mind. Okay. Roberta, you have anything else?
Well, so the travel ban and whether the board wants to institute a rule about employees who might travel outside of the state and surrounding jurisdictions, and whether you want them to report the fact and then follow through with testing and or quarantining.
Are you talking about for county employees?
Yes, which is the draft that was put out.
Right. And this follows, Roberta, this follows what the governor put out, basically. It's just that we're going to say it's for our county employees. Correct?
Right. It's word for word the governor's order plus a little.
I was going to say, as I read it, it seemed to follow exactly, but.
Yeah. So I think it would be appropriate. It's basically who are the folks that we control, and that is our county employees. And, we say we are going to adhere to the governor's guidelines. So that is in, kind of the way it should be, I think. But should we go beyond that and, I won't say an advisor, just leave it at that for the rest of the county? Because the governor didn't, I understand, but did the governor's, and I don't know, did he say it for the entire state or did he say it for state employees? He said for the entire state.
Correct.
Right. It's a statewide travel ban. Has
Right.
Whether they've done something for their state employees or not is not, it was not part of his conversation.
So the thought for us is we're going to let the state do what the state says, and we are just going to address those that are within our direct control, which is the county government, correct?
Right. Your 650 direct county commissioner employees. If you want.
So if we don't, let me ask an opposite question. If we don't do this and remind our employees that they should be adhering to this, and someone travels and gets a couple of folks in a department sick, y'all want to talk amongst yourselves about what that would do? I just think this is the right thing to do. I don't know what the debate is about here. For me,
Yeah, I think we have to adhere to it and make it the policy through 31 January, as the governor said, for those folks that we directly control.
and it's not like we have, 87 people working in different departments. Well, there's a couple of them that do, but I guess my point is, if you've been working with somebody and you've taken the week off, obviously your coworker's probably going to know that you're going to travel to visit whoever. And if they come back and don't adhere to this and somebody gets sick, or somebody's, has an issue, I don't want to be the one sitting here saying, well, we heard that, but with an 8 point something positivity rate, I don't even think this is a debatable thing. But anyway, Eric.
How many of our employees out of the 600 and some have been infected so far? Does anyone know?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. Human Resources.
Whatever, anyway. Oh, wait, I don't know. Never mind.
Well, it's a little bit HIPAA,
Yeah, I don't know.
just a tad bit HIPAA. We got to be careful.
We're worried about the infection of our employees, and our staff has already been infected. It's already been through our staff. It's quite obvious. I'm a little bit iffy on this order because it seems to be more symbolism over substance, because it exempts people in the neighboring states. If you travel to West Virginia or Pennsylvania, you're okay, but if you travel to New York, you're not. I mean, it seems kind of worthless. Like I said, it seems more symbolism over substance, because if you're allowed to go to a neighboring state and you're okay, but if you go one state over, you're not. As far as medical science, that's an absurdity.
So I'm going to jump in on this one. And I can't talk about medical science, but what I can say is that unlike potentially previous commissioners or others, it's our responsibility, I believe, to adhere to what our governor is putting out as an executive order. And we committed ourselves to adhering to our governor's directions to the best of our ability and what we can control. That's why focusing it on our staff at 600 and plus county staff, that is within our direct control. And we're setting an example to, again, adhere to what our governor says. And that's our responsibility, is to execute the laws. So I know where you're going and I understand, but that's not part of the debate. It's, as Steve said, it's more, what is our state directing us to do? And we as a county leadership should be willing to adhere to it and set the example. I don't want to go beyond that, because then it becomes uncontrollable and unresourced, and we can only do the things that we can resource. So
with this ban, a county employee takes, has the week off. They travel to New York or California, wherever they're going, they come back. Now they have to get retested and quarantined, correct?
No.
Yes and no.
Yeah, right.
They need to do one or the other. They need to either get a negative test or quarantine.
Okay, and that test may take a couple days to come back. So in that time, they're not coming back to work. Is that correct?
The order, Commissioner, specifically says that the individuals to quarantine until they receive the results of the test. Now, the order also allows for if you plan this out well and you're able to get a test where you are somewhere else, you could get the test 3 days in advance of returning to Maryland. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that is allowed under the order.
You're like the Wizard of Oz. You're like the man behind the curtain, man.
Yeah, he comes flying in. You know,
It drives me
here he is,
crazy.
and he's gone. Boom.
So,
Hey,
Yeah, as shared, it's like you said, you get the test, but unless they cannot telework or perform their duties from home or while quarantined, then it's on their time. It's not sick time or sick leave. But in good case, if somebody goes to Florida and gets tested and is waiting results, and that person has the ability to telework, then they're working, which is what I would expect. So, but there could be others like a worker over at DPW, a road worker, they can't telework. But if they decide to go up to New York and get tested, and they're going to take 3 days typically, and it's on their time. And we have to, be concerned with that because this is very late notice that this came out. And plans have been made with a lot of folks, I would imagine, for the holidays. But that's the situation we're in.
yeah, a couple things here too for me. First of all, Eric, I'm glad to hear somebody else on this board use the word absurd. It's about time. I mean, I used it. Finally, somebody else used. I love it. That's number one.
That's
Well, yeah, that's beyond. Number two, I think we're getting way deeper into this than what we need to be. And let's be clear. Maybe a handful of folks. They'll have to do this. I seriously doubt if there's many people out of our 600 person workforce that are going anywhere. And if they are, they're probably going to Pennsylvania or West Virginia or Delaware, where it's not, you don't have to do that. So this is just for those folks who are traveling long distance. And I bet you can count them on your hand. I might be wrong, but I bet there's not that many. And we're just merely advising our folks that's what they need to adhere to. And if you read this thing, like I did word for word, it's strongly encouraged, strongly recommended. There's not must or things like that in there. I mean, there are things that say you shall, but a lot of this is strongly recommended. So again, maybe this goes back to the thing that we were talking about before. We're just reminding people of what the best practices are here. So I'm struggling to debate this a whole lot further because I don't think it's going to affect a whole lot of people. And those people that are going somewhere, they're going to do the right thing. I guarantee you they are.
So I'm sorry, Commissioner, I don't want anyone confused. We would require this of people if you go down this path. So if a county employee, we would expect them. So yes, the governor's order has words like recommendation and strongly this and that. We would expect a county employee who travels to tell us that they are doing so and B, follow these rules when they get back.
Ms. Wenham, have you distributed this to all of our personnel yet? Should we do more? If we just do that, we distribute to all of our personnel.
Yes, we would always let folks know. Yes.
We have to approve it first.
We'll do it.
We got to approve it first or else
yeah.
it's not going to go.
So, I heard what you said, Steve, about the advisory. This is more than advisory. This is a directive. There are advisory pieces to this, but it definitely is a directive for our county employees. Okay. And understanding it does go through 31 January. So it's not just this holiday, but, like skiers and stuff like that. But I will make the motion that we put this order into place, or whatever we're calling it, this policy into place, effective immediately.
Second.
Okay. Can we add the Galapagos Islands? No, I'm just kidding.
Been there.
Yeah. So, all right. Any other thoughts on this? Listen, we always have good debates on these things. I want to be clear, and everybody has good thoughts. They really do, and it's appreciated. But I just think, as I said a couple minutes ago, this seems to me to be a no-brainer one. And I wasn't trying to soften it, but as you read down through this, there are things in the process that say strongly recommended and should. That's all. So, okay. All right. Debate over. All those in favor? That's 1, 2, 3, 4. And Eric? Okay. All right. 4-1.
So interested on Mr. Singer being the Wizard of Oz because I want to put in for a brain.
Okay. All right. Anything else COVID? All right. Ed Singer, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, etc., etc. By the way, myself and Commissioner Rothstein will be tag teaming moving forward here for a little while, our COVID efforts, and we'll be adding Commissioner Rothstein to the threads for the weekly calls that I had set up a couple months ago, and the county's calls that we get, and the text messaging that we are back and forth with one another on. So we'll get Ed included on those, and again, we're going to tag team those for the first couple months, and then I'm going to disappear like Singer does, but then I'll be back. So anyway, okay.
Thanks, commissioners. Have a Merry Christmas
You do the same.
and a Happy New Year.
That's
Thank you,
absurd.
brother.
Wait a minute. Did Weaver just use absurd? Nice.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah. Well, Linda's going to go, what?
Don't we have to approve some minutes?
Yeah, we
From
got to
closed.
approve before we get to Linda, we got to approve a set of closed minutes as part of this open session. And you all received a copy of that as Weaver adjusts his curtain thing that he's got going there. I don't know what he's doing. So I need to entertain a motion to
What's the date? I don't have it in front of
to
me.
approve
December
the
17th.
December 17th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from closed session on December 17th.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Okay. Now,
Then we'll stop. I got to start the next.
so with that being said, I will take, let's officially take a motion to adjourn here just to make it right, because Chris Swam has to flip a switch here to get us over to another
It takes
format,
a while.
right, Chris?
Yeah, just real quick.
Real quick. It's going to be
But do
real quick.
we stay on?
You'll
Yes.
stay in
Yeah, we
this.
stay right here.
Yep.
Nobody's going anywhere.
Wait,
Motion to adjourn.
Hold on.
Second.
Hold on.
what?
Roberta?
Yeah, I mean, it's still recording, and I mean, Chris, it's a work session. It's really no different. It's still,
Too late now.
Wait, we switch it?
I'm doing it now.
Okay.
Okay, but we're going to still be on the air.
Right.
Yeah, we're
that's
still going
not
to be on the
stopping.
air.
It's just the legislative part of it, Roberta, and minute track.
okay.
Okay. So we're not adjourning. We're still on.
Mhm.
So hang on. Yeah, I know. Withdraw your motion, Rothstein.
Yeah, we're good.
It's gone.
Getting absurd.
Yeah. See, I shouldn't have said absurd because now Weaver's using it all the time. Jeez.
It's like
He
his
just
word of the
scooted
day
out of
now.
here.
What's absurd is being in front of the shower curtain. That's what's absurd.
Oh, see, I wasn't going to go there. I was not going to go.
Okay, we're ready to go whenever you guys are here.
Okay. All right, we're ready.
He left the room after I said that. I don't know about that guy. Are we taking a break for 2 minutes or something?
We're up.
Yeah,
We're back.
up. We're back on.
All right.
Work session.
Let's go.
Okay, now we're technically now into the work session mode. So, Linda Eisenberg, how you doing? Can we get through
I'm
this?
doing well.
we've got about 11 plus 2 properties, and I would like to get through it by 2:30. Go.
All right, good. I'm done. So prove it all.
Sorry about that, Linda, but there were several things that we needed to accomplish, and sometimes, these debates get us a little bit elongated with some of our discussions, but it's all very important. So we appreciate you and your staff's patience, and now we can go officially into the comprehensive rezoning. So for that, Linda Eisenberg.
All right, well, good afternoon, gentlemen. And that was a very important conversation and very much needed. So I was more than happy to sit there patiently as I heard all the interesting information from our Ed Singer and from you all in your discussion. So moving ahead, I don't think I can get through it in 10 minutes or even 20, but I will do my best to go through the material in the quickest way possible. So our final comprehensive rezoning discussions. And we have 2 properties first on our list today that are rediscussions of property 0014, which is MAD Property Enterprises, and 0018, which is MT Laney. I sent the presentation to you last Friday with additional information from the applicant as far as where they stand on these properties. So again, just as a reminder, the MAD properties, those properties are located off of Old Liberty Road, south of Maryland 26, just west of the Winfield Rural Village. Their future land use designation is agriculture, and they're currently zoned ag. So the response from the applicant as to whether they would accept a C1 zoning, I put the whole summary here. I'm not going to read through all of it, but basically the owner of the property would accept a C1 designation, but does not believe it's appropriate zoning for the property. The reason is that the property's current historic use is either heavy commercial or quasi-industrial, because they've had plumbing operations and supplies. And there's also current use as a mix of commercial, residential, and light industrial. They believe that a C2 is more appropriate for this property. They feel that they could also maybe in the future have feeder grain, service repair, radio television studio, auto service center, vehicle repair, veterinary facilities, funeral establishments, rental of vehicles with outdoor storage. So though the list above illustrates why C2 would be appropriate for this particular property, that's the direction they would like to go. So again, they would do C1, but really feel C2 is more appropriate for the size and location of this property.
But I think it was great that they came back with that offer, and C1 would be a compromise, but I'd really like to see the C2. So I want to do a provisional motion that we accept the C2.
All right, I've got a motion for C2 on this one. Is there a
I
second?
apologize. What property number is this?
14.
This is
14.
1-4. This is MAD Property Enterprises.
It's the old I believe it was Garland Plumbing Facility off of Old Liberty, just past Woodbine Road on the left, if you give you a geographic visual.
It's the one that should be conservation. I'm just kidding.
Don't make me come over there and wrestle you.
To be your last conscious act.
Yeah, I'd lose.
So I've got a motion to go with C2. Dick, your light's green. Go ahead.
I think, looking at this whole thing, where it is, it's not going to make much difference on this. I'll second that motion.
Okay, I got a motion and second for C2 on 2020-0014. Any other thoughts on this one? All those, and it's a provisional vote now again, for those that are tuning in that didn't watch us previously. These are just placeholders. So all those in favor? I'm trying to look. 1, 2, and I'm 3. I can't tell. Okay, there's 4. Dennis? No, nothing from you.
No, I was going to abstain, but no, I'm just kidding.
So
No.
I got 4 in favor and opposed or not? 1 opposed. Okay. 4 to
Like I
1
put two
provisionally
opposed.
with a proposed wrestling match coming up very soon, coming to a venue near you. Okay, next one, Linda.
All right. So again, I-209-2020-0018, Melvin Laney. And again, I sent information to you all last week and also a BZA case from 2005, I believe. This property is located off of Salem Bonner Road. The request is for I-2 or industrial heavy. As you can see from the environmental constraints imagery, map, that the property does have a lot of environmental constraints with steep slopes and water resource protection easement on the property, as well as forest cover. The future land use designation is resource conservation. And the applicant response was that they would accept an I-1 category, but they would prefer to have the entire property designated I-1, as opposed to just the sections that they could continue their operations. They understand the environmental factors constitute a de facto limitation on those portions of the property to be developed for I-1 uses. Their concern is that environmentally sensitive areas could be used to satisfy conservation, water resource protection, other environmental requirements, which would be associated with an I-1. Their feeling is if it's reduced to just the areas that they can build on, that then that area would be shrunk even more to then meet additional environmental requirements under I-1. Now, I did speak with Development Review, who reached out to our environmental compliance, and they feel that that's not accurate, but we would not know until a full site plan came in for the site what would be required and not required for additional environmental protections on this property. So they, again, appreciate you all considering them and talking with them about this, but really feel that split zoning the property would not be the solution. So they're agreeable to the I-1, but would prefer not to have the property split zoned.
This is a tough one too. I want a motion that we provisionally accept the I-1, and by doing so, they need to understand that all those restrictions with the environmental review would come into play. I want people to know that if they do industrialize some of this property, there's so many restrictions, they're very limited on what they can do. So I motion for the I-1.
All right, is there a second on this one? Linda, you've got the BZA case up here from 2005. Is there a reason for that?
That was part of the materials that I submitted to you, also in addition, because it was mentioned in their information.
Okay, yeah,
Did
I read that case. Okay,
Okay.
yep,
And
Yep.
they denied it
Sure.
in 2005, correct?
yeah.
Right, they denied it because of environmental constraints and what they
Right.
thought might happen if the
And
whole thing
the-
got developed like
This
that.
this is also the road cannot be expanded, correct? There's just no portions of that road that could be expanded, and that was a big
Are you
concern.
referring to Salem Bottom Road?
Where the, what's her name, Ms. Bales lives on the corner.
And then
That-
No, that's a different property.
That's a
Oh,
different
is it?
property.
Okay, I
Yeah, this-
apologize.
Yes.
Yeah, this is over on, this is over off Salem Bottom. This is, who's got
It's
this?
it's hidden. You're not gonna see it. It's,
Laney, MT Laney's got this one.
Oh,
And
it's Laney Pro, okay, I'm sorry.
Dick, go ahead,
I am.
go ahead, Dick.
I want split zoning, and they're happy with I-1.
Yes, right, Linda? I won.
I'm sorry, can you rephrase that question, please?
no split zoning, and they are happy with I-1, correct? Is that your motion, Eric?
Yeah, they'd be satisfied with walking away with I-1 as a backdrop.
Commissioner, not to jump in, I believe you recused yourself from this the last time, Commissioner Boucher?
That's true. So technically I can't make the motion then, correct?
Right.
Well, then I would have to withdraw the motion and someone else would have to bring the motion forward. Thank goodness we have Mr. Burke around.
And Ms. Eisenberg. Mrs. Eisenberg.
So, Linda, they want the entire property as I-1 as opposed to split zoned.
Correct. But I will say the property is already currently split zone between ag and conservation now.
Right?
So they would want an all I-1 designation as opposed to I-1 where they feel it's appropriate. So I'm going to go back to the imagery.
Yeah.
As you
Yeah,
can
I'm looking at it. Yeah.
already developed. They just don't want that I-1. They want everything to be I-1.
Meanwhile, the original request was half of it being I-2, correct?
No, the original request was to be I-2.
Well,
They could never use the entire property for
Yeah.
I-1, though, correct? Due to environmental constraints, they'd never go through that wood line and be able to use any of it.
Yeah.
And if I remember, this is a very steep property.
Yeah.
Parts of it.
It is, and I think they'd be limited with their I-1 to the area that's
I
open
didn't know.
now. Because
Right.
that's all that they're looking to do there. I think they're looking to do a repair facility for some of their vehicles, right? Eric, you can nod since you're recused.
Yes, sir. I was wondering what I can say at this point. I don't want Mr. Burke jumping on me. But yeah, that wooded area at the bottom of that photo is all a real steep area. They couldn't do anything with it. And then on the bottom edge, closer to the stream, is all, environmental sensitive water area or floodplain. I think the only thing they want to do is where you see the buildings and some vehicles is they want to be able to put in a fenced in yard for their vehicles and tear down the old buildings and put up a new building for some maintenance. But they are very much aware that even if they got the full zoning, when they come in with a site proposal, they're extremely limited on their footprint on that property, what they can do with it. But I think they're faced with the same thing a lot of other businesses in this county are faced with, is the lack of land for this type of work. And I'm concerned that if we don't provide some of these little notches for these businesses, their business can go outside of our county and easily find this land.
So, I wouldn't want Mr. Burke jumping on me either, but that's, personal. And Eric, there's an old adage, when you make a sale, stop selling. I'll make the motion that we move this to I-1 professionally.
I'll second that.
All right. We've got a motion to go to I-1. I will say that the only other thing that I'll say, this sort of goes along those lines of if we don't do something for them, Eric, you make a good point. They're not going to invest in this property and it's just going to sit there and remain in a little bit of a downtrodden fashion, or they're going to walk. And I hate to see MT Laney walk.
I'm sorry.
That's just my thoughts on it. I don't think we need to debate a whole lot longer, but go ahead.
Did the Department of Planning, Linda, look at this again as for I-1 because it's unfavorable for I-2? Is it still unfavorable for the Department of Planning for I-1?
I would say yes, it is. We did not reevaluate it formally, but feel that industrial is not appropriate in this location. Because you have to contemplate for all uses. So they are allowed to do what they are currently allowed to do indefinitely. But when you consider it for I-1, I guess the consideration would be, is it agreeable for all I-1 uses?
Right. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
All right, I've got a motion and second on this. Again, this is provisional. Reminder. So those in favor for I-1. And that's 3, and opposed 1, and abstention 1. All right, moving on.
Okay, so the next property, that is C21420200006. This property is the Evler property. This property has a favorable staff recommendation, but the PC recommendation is unfavorable for C2. Community comments are in opposition, both written and oral at the listening session and public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. This is the wrong comment list. I apologize. There were oppositions by the neighboring properties. The issue is that the request for C1 allows auto repair, but not automotive service. So the difference between the two is one is a repair shop where you can do like oil changes. The other one, I'm sorry, the vehicle repair is more permissive than auto service center. You can have painting bays and things like that, which have much more few employees associated with them. And that was the request why they wanted the C2 designation as opposed to the C1. The C1 designation, they were currently zoned BNR, and they went to the C1 because of their current BNR that they had as of December of 2019. So this property is located off of Woodbine Road near the Howard County line. It is in the Woodbine Rural Village, and it's one of the middle properties in a series of 3. The property to the north of it had an incorrect boundary from the State Department of Assessments and Taxation. We did fix that boundary as the result of the notification of the rezoning request. And so what happens is the property originally was to go to the properties. Now it's just this 137, which is the correct parcel for the Sarah Evler property. So again, staff gave this a favorable recommendation, but Planning Commission felt it was unfavorable for C2.
I went and met with you.
What's the property south, just south of here, next door to it?
Mary, do you know what that property is south of this?
What is it? Eric knows. What is it, Eric?
It is a landscaping business.
Okay.
I went and met with the owners of this property. It's a Carroll County couple. They're running a construction business out of it, and they have I guess it's an automotive auto body shop leasing out in the front. I think the C2 fits perfectly for that property. You know, it's already being used commercially. It fits in with the whole rural village concept. And I like the idea that this business is doing well. They're hiring people. They're thriving as part of the economy locally. Therefore, I'm on motion that we provisionally accept the C2 zoning.
C2, is that what you said? 2?
Sir.
Are there any other?
It's C1 right now, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I have. Ed, do you remember why it's unfavorable by the Planning Commission?
They did not feel that C2 was favorable for this area, given that it's on a somewhat not major road. I mean, it's on Woodbine Road. The rest of the rural village is all characteristic of C1. So they just felt that C2 was just one step too far.
Yeah, and the same.
You muted yourself, Commissioner Rothstein.
Ed, you muted.
I apologize. You know, like looking at the other properties that you know, it's not the existing use of the property, it's what could occur in the C2 zoned property. That's, you know, that was the big concern, is there's a lot more that could happen in the C2 piece of property. I guess my question is, are there any C2 properties, you know, in this area on Woodbine?
There are none.
The current
Let's see.
business that's there now, Eric, what limitations do they have right now in being C1 in their zone area? Are there any limitations?
I guess Linda or Mary might be able to express the technical aspect.
I think the biggest limitation for them is that they cannot do the auto. I'm sorry, Mary, was it the vehicle repair shop they can't do?
Right, they can do the automobile service, they can't do the vehicle repair. That's really the limitation that caused them to submit this request.
And I think they have trucks and equipment there that they're running out of the facility, but I guess they can't do the work on and the maintenance.
They can't do body work and they can't do paint, they can't paint there, and they can't do very large vehicles. That's the way the vehicle repair is defined. So I'm not sure if those trucks you're talking about are something they want to be working on there, but that is a limitation to them.
Is it their intent to expand the current building in order to accommodate what they're asking for, or not?
Yeah,
No, I don't believe they would have, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner, go ahead.
I got the impression while I toured the back lot for them, it's all wide open, and they would like to have some sort of building in the back that they could actually put their trucks in and do some maintenance. Now it's all wide open outside of the automotive shop in the very front, which I believe they lease out. I think they're looking for more facility in the back of the lot that's not seen from the road, for all their trucks. Instead of being parked out in the open, they'd have some sort of facility to put their trucks in, do their work on.
So
My
C2
problem
would not make any difference from what they're already doing, right?
Yeah, it would.
I mean, they can expand a little, but
It's not so much the expansion. They would like to be doing vehicle repair in addition to automobile service, and that's the difference between the C1 and the C2. And also, they did have as a non-conforming use years ago, vehicle repair in that facility, but they let it lapse for too long, so they lost their ability to do the vehicle repairs. So when they went to the BZA about a year and a half ago, too much time had gone between when they had been doing vehicle repair, so they were only approved for the auto service, and that's when they applied for this.
My problem with this is that all around it, is that village residential. Well, except for across the street.
Well, across the street and beside them.
Well,
I mean, they're,
that's small. Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
yeah,
That
I
small
mean,
area.
it's pretty much all
it's just-
some sort of business going on there,
There is. I mean, I
Except
know
north.
the area, so I know there are
Yeah.
businesses there, but
except north of them. There's a couple residential places there. And then it skips back over, what, in the Woodbine Inn in there somewhere, Eric?
The Woodbine is down in the bottom, but across the street, catty corner, used to be a 7-Eleven. They had a
Right.
gas station. There's a post office and a strip mall. So there's commercial activity in there. And Mary made a very good point that at one time they were doing this type of work there for years, and then it lapsed. So it's not like a shock to the community. The community's been exposed to this before.
Yeah.
that might not be a good way to say it. But
And
we
there's
are-
access to
well,
a
we
bus.
We're only talking 1.5 acres. I mean, it's not like a large parcel. So it's not that they can expand more. It's really what additional services can they do with the intent of being more of a all-inclusive type of service, which the C2 would allow.
Yeah, and they're just a small business. It's a couple. They got a few employees. And I think they're restricted on this footprint. Instead of trying to go out and find another place, they'd love to be able to condense, do their service on their property. I think it'd be good economically for the community.
All right, did you make a motion, Eric?
Yes, sir.
I'll second it.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
All right, I got a motion in 2 seconds. Kind of sure where this one's going. All right, all those in favor of C2 on 0006? And that's unanimous. All right, next up,
Thank you, colleagues.
The next are a series of properties known as K&P Resource LLC or Kennel Properties. These properties have a favorable staff and planning commission recommendation and are consistent with the plan for the area. Community comments are in major opposition, especially the Reese Road community. Both written and oral testimony was given at the listening session and public hearing. There was a fourth property. That property was dropped from the initial request. So now we're only considering 3, 009, 0012, and 0013. Map of the series of properties. The first one is number 9. That's parcel 64. Here's a more up close aerial image of that picture. It is just to the west of the landfill. The next is 0009, and that's Ag to Employment Campus. So as you can see, here's the landfill to the east. This property is within the Westminster Municipal Growth Area, and is part of the Westminster Environs Plan. So again, both Planning Commission and staff gave this a favorable recommendation for Employment Campus because it is consistent with the Westminster Comprehensive Plan for the area, the future land use as expressed in the plan, its situation within the municipal growth area, and its proximity to future water and sewer. Water and sewer is not currently on this site. Sites to the north and west are in light industrial and also have other land uses as employment campus in the proximity. And as I said, the Carroll County Northern Landfill is situated directly to the northeast of this request.
Okay.
All
So
right,
this is just 0009, right?
Correct, and there's 2 more. If you want to consider all, this one's kind of broken off separately from the other 2 requests.
I'd like to take them separately myself.
So would I.
Yeah. So Dick, you're lit up in more ways than one, of course.
Looking at these properties, these are ones that, on 140, and, I'm concerned about the lack of water and sewer down this way next to the landfill. Wells could be a potential issue into the future. And I don't think we're going to have sewer and water that way for at least 20 years, maybe longer. And also the traffic on 140 is, I think, one of the worst issues we have here. Plus, we also have some of the issues with the reservoir and the reservoir group. Now, we did get opposition to this, correct, Linda, with about how many?
So the opposition, I think, was mainly for the commercial and the industrial. We didn't hear a lot specifically about this employment campus piece. The other 2 properties, there was opposition. I'm not saying that there wasn't. The majority of the opposition was to the properties that are to the east side of the landfill.
Yeah. Dick,
Yeah,
Dick, I want to try to get away from lumping them together. I want to take them one at a time. You're kind of lumping them together. I'd like to take
Well, they are
9 first.
I understand what you're talking about, and 9 is right next to the landfill, correct?
Yeah, it's on the east or the west side of the landfill.
West, yeah.
The west side.
Yeah,
Yeah, west.
Yeah,
yeah.
in fact, it's away from residential. It's butted between 140 and the landfill. So there is no residential there.
Yes. And, so whatever goes in there has to go on a well, correct?
Unless water and sewer extended is actually not in the water and sewer service area. So yes, it would have to go on well and septic.
That's why at the present time, I'm opposed to this property going in a landfill, any leakage, anything. We've had issues with this in other areas, into that well, and that well becomes condemned. Now we're obligated to push sewer and water down further on this. And, when we just got done this morning looking at budget, and it doesn't look pretty in the next, years. And I'm opposed to making this one a change at this time. Now, later down in the future, when sewer and water comes, I think it'd be a potential for that, but that's got to be Westminster, and they have to have additional capacity, I think, before they can do that. So I'm going to move that we don't change, a provisional, we don't change the zoning on this.
Where is, okay, I got a motion to not change this one. Where's the sheets on here? The new sheets that was put in?
Across the street and closer to Westminster.
Yeah, I know, but how far up is
Oh,
it? Because didn't Westminster, right there? Okay. Didn't Westminster, didn't the city
Expand their
expand
water?
water and sewer to
believe they did.
sheets? I think
I believe that they did.
they almost had
I'm
to.
not 100% sure.
Well, I can't believe that Sheets is on a well.
No, it's true.
I'm gonna get an
And what-
answer on that.
Okay, I mean, not that that makes a difference, but if you get the right thing that wants to move into here, I don't know how big a deal it is to extend water and sewer to here, other than the fact that there's, they continue to say that the water is an issue, amount-wise.
Right, the capacity
Capacity,
issue
I'm
for
sorry,
the
yeah.
water and sewer
Right, I
is
couldn't find
what
water
they're looking
units.
at, right?
Thank you.
Right.
What's
I'm
what's
sorry, go ahead.
beside it? What I can't remember.
You're a
exactly
mile
what's-
away at this time.
What's beside it? Right beside, isn't that storage facility there or not? I can't remember.
No, that's
No.
farther up. Storage
That's
facility's further up.
Okay,
There's
So
just nothing but a field and then the storage facility.
okay, so it's open between
Yes.
this and that.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
So
But,
right,
I
right
mean,
next to it is the landfill, correct?
yes. And if you're looking at this right now for well or septic, whoever, if this was approved, whoever would try to build something on there would have to realize, well, that's what you're gonna have to deal with. If you don't want to deal with that right now, you're not building on it. There's just no other way around it. I mean, it's several thousand feet for the, it's listed here somewhere. 2,700 feet for the water and 3,000 feet for the sewer. I mean, could it be extended? Yeah, but if you're looking at this the way it is right now, and this gets approved, then it's your well and septic, or you're not going to build on it.
Or they'll strike a deal with the city and get
Or
water,
they could, yeah.
because, a lot of the builders will do that.
Or come to the commissioners, ask for money to extend this.
No, I can't,
That'd be an easy answer.
yeah,
Yeah.
I already got that answer.
I was gonna say, because this board, I know.
Well, it'll cost, believe me.
Dick, you've got a genuine concern there, and I'm not disagreeing with you at all. But I think out of all these, and I don't want to lump them all together, the next two are no-brainers for me, for obvious reasons. But this one this one kind of makes sense to me, because it's part of that growth area for the city, and it makes sense, other than the environmental concerns that you're bringing up when it comes to water or sewer. So I'm having a tough time with this one. Does anybody want a second? I mean, Dick's got a motion on the floor.
No, I agree with you, Steve. This one does make sense. The other two, completely different, and we'll get to them. But
Take one at a time.
Yeah, one at a time. I know. All right, is there a second to Commissioner Weaver's motion? Okay.
So excuse me, question, does have existing water and sewer.
I'm sorry, say that again, Linda.
The sheets does have existing water and sewer. I'm gonna put the imagery up here for you all to see.
There we go.
So here is the imagery for the area. the sheets is, you can see my, you can see, I don't think I can see, you can see my cursor to,
Okay.
It's right here.
Yeah.
over.
And then the property is
Down over here.
down,
Oh, you can't see where I'm
no,
pointing.
right there, no, go
No,
down.
keep going.
It's actually easy
It's more to-
storage.
It's more to the right.
It's more, go to the right, Chris.
Keep going. It's,
Your cursor-
see where that white spot is? That
Yeah.
white dash area?
Yeah, I got it.
That's where that,
Okay, so it's that little piece right there.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Frazier.
what? It's not my district. All right, I'll make the motion that we change the zoning from agriculture to employment campus.
Provisionally.
Provisionally, of course.
I will
I'll
second that. Provisionally.
All right, now I've got a motion and second for a provisional change to employment campus. Any further discussion on this one? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, and opposed? Okay. All right, next one, Linda.
So again, kind of finishing up, now these are all lumped together, and again, not to go back and talk about that, but just one of the property owner did have conversations at one point in time in the past saying that water and sewer could be negotiated with the city.04, no recent discussions have occurred with the city regarding extending water and sewer.
Right, okay.
C3 04-2020-0012. The request is ag to C3. These properties are located along Baltimore Boulevard, Maryland 140, starting at the corner of Reese Road and moving north toward the entrance to the northern landfill. The property 0013 is the industrial heavy request directly behind it. This would be a split zoning. So parcel 73 would be the only parcel completely covered by the C3 designation. Parcel 1601 and 1003 would be split, where the front portion would be C3, and then the back portion, if the request is granted, would be to the I2 or industrial heavy. Both staff and planning commission gave these properties a favorable recommendation for the C3 district. And again, as I said, there's been a lot of opposition with regard to the proposed rezoning of these properties.
Whose district is
Ditto
this?
what I said before to this. I mean, if you're looking at 140 and you're going to be another red light put in here, and the state highway would have to do something additional to the sewer and water and issues. I'm not in favor of moving these.
Both of them together, Dick, 12 and 13?
But well, why don't we just do 12 first?
Okay, we were going to take them one at a time,
Yeah.
Dick. Let's just do 12. 0012.
Yeah, so I agree with Commissioner Weaver on this one. What also is bothering me is that we're calling it a landfill heavy industrial. I mean, shouldn't we call the landfill? I mean, that's really what it is. It's not going to change. And you know, the concern is we make colors to like make everything look like it's blending together, and it's a landfill, and it's not going to change. So what you have is a landfill and residential area to the east of that landfill off of Reese. So it does not conform to the area. If you look at it the way these colors are, you say, oh, it conforms because you got heavy industrial and you want to put more industrial there. It does not. And it does cause, you know, more concern for the residential areas that feed up into Reese Road off of 140. So I don't know if that's something, Linda, we can look at, is how we can redesignate zoning, making a landfill a landfill.
So it's a zoning designation, not a land use designation. And so all property has to have some type of zoning. So right now, I think it's zoned agriculture. I would say that Vanpill's not agricultural either. So you're in the master plan trying to actually categorize it more appropriately from agricultural to industrial. And that's why it has that designation.
Okay. Okay.
I would say here, I'm not in favor of C3, but maybe C2 in this area. I don't know if you could go back to the owners and see if they'd be interested in C2, because I think that'd be much more appropriate for here.
You're still gonna have a traffic issue no matter what you do in this area.
Excellent. Excellent. I love that somebody's tagging on to my public safety. Nicely done, Weaver. What was your motion,
That's
Dick?
absurd. No, I'm just
Okay, now I got Fraser saying absurd. What was your motion, Dick? Again, I'm sorry. Make your motion again.
Provisional motion that we just leave it the zoning as it is.
And I second it.
Okay. All right.
So, no, before you vote. So no one wants to go back and look at this and see if that the property owners are wanting to go to C2 instead of C3.
I don't.
No.
Okay, throw it out there. You can throw it
Me-
back at me.
Okay, here, I'm throwing it back. There, throw it back.
Okay.
No, I don't, Dennis. And I tell you, I'm weighing heavily on the fact that we heard rather loud and clear from those that live around there. And C3 to C2,
Well,
it isn't going to change a whole lot there.
well, they were. I mean, I understand, and we did hear the from the residents, but I thought a lot of that had to do with Reese Road, and they didn't want to have that access, and because the road isn't that big and so forth. But if you just made this C2 and just along 140, you could access it from 140. You wouldn't have to use Reese Road at all.
Yeah, still, I'm still not.
Been through 140 hit many times. It would have to be a red light installed in this area. It would be a mess right at the present time.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, I'm just
Good
fighting
dogs,
for
though.
Another Route 20.
All right. The motion is, and second, to leave 0012 the way it is. All those in favor, provisionally. That's
Well,
1, 2, 3, 4, and opposed. Okay.
I mean, I'm not, have to be clear. I'm not for C3. I'm not for C3.
Right.
And that's what it's here.
Okay. I
Okay.
got it. Okay. All
Hey,
right.
before we go on, just real quick, this also brings up the concern of doing the traffic analysis and traffic studies. The comments that we don't do traffic studies until a developer says what they want to develop. But like you said, Steve, you know what the traffic looks like there. You know, you don't have to do another traffic study to recognize this is a very congested area. And we're going to run into that with other areas, especially down my area with the residential situation. When people say, we're not going to do a traffic study until a developer says what he or she wants to develop. So we just have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Linda. Now we just move right into 0013. And same scenario, right? Only
Same
the names
scenario.
change.
3 parcels behind, 1601, 534, and parcel 75.
I have to say, I'm not in favor of rezoning this one because the only way to get to these parcels is to go up Reese Road and get back that way. And that would really increase the traffic there. I'm not in favor of doing that to that community. Whole different from the ones we just talked about, but for that one, I'm not in favor of it.
Yeah, I see your point there, but remembering, of course, too, that property in the front there that you're talking about would still be accessible from Reese Road. They could do it if they wanted.
Well, it depends on the site plan. It's possible. Yes,
Right.
it is. It
Yeah,
is.
That's why I'm,
I would not like to see a site plan that had that access on there.
right, okay.
But only reason I'm for that is because you can access that completely from 140 and get
Okay.
out from 140. You don't have to worry about that road.
Right, okay.
These properties adjoin the landfill again, right?
Yes, sir.
Totally butt up the landfill And we have a watershed agreement here with the reservoir agreement to deal with on these as well. Sewer and water and Reese Road, which is a paved cow path, is another, I think, a major issue for these roads. And once you hit 140, you got 43,000 vehicles a day going down that road, and certain times it's unbelievable. So I'm going to move it one, provisionally leave this area as ag.
I'll second that one.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, and opposed? Okay, 4-1. What's going on in Woodbine today? Is the air down there different? What's going on down there? Okay. All right.
Sometimes I feel like you can't do it unanimously. Someone needs to oppose it. It's all pass anyway.
Okay.
It's water, you're on a well.
Okay. All right, Linda.
Okay, so
Linda.
the next three properties, these are properties that have both unfavorable staff and planning commission recommendations and are not consistent with the plan for the area. Community comments in opposition for 0016 and major opposition for 0023 and 0030. Both written and oral comments were made at the listening session and the public hearing. So the first one is I-105-2020-0016, and this is the Fogel property. The request is conservation to I-1 Industrial 1. This is an aerial image. It is two parcels, parcel 578 and parcel 588. They are just north of Obrecht Road. The entrance to the properties is Obrecht Road. There are residential properties that are just in front of this along Obrecht Road. To the east is a county park with ball fields. And then this is just outside the Sykesville Municipal Growth Area. This property has had a long history that we went through in our staff report. And right to the back, you can't see it on this aerial image, but right behind it to the north is the Piney Run Reservoir and the dam inundation area is all to the rear and north of this particular property. And you can see the blue in the upper kind of middle right after the word use. That is the actual reservoir area. I'm sorry, the area for the Piney Run recreational lake. And that's where the dam inundation area would be found in this area, which is conservation zoning in the municipal growth area for the town of Sykesville. And if you recall, also Sykesville wrote a comment that they were not in favor of this rezoning change. And this is a 5.3 acre property.
So the Fogel family has been running this for 25 plus years. It is a very well-run business. It's all hardtack. It's all either tarmac or cement. It's not going to change. As you can see from the aerial, it's zoned conservation right now, but it will never change from what it is. I mean, nothing will ever grow on that except for more cement. They are very, very strong partners with our community, with the rec baseball and with the Freedom Rec program that you see those fields, they take care of them. Currently, the portion to the south is a parking lot, and they open it up for the community to park there for all sporting events, evening sporting events. The community outreach has been actually very positive. There's been, I think, one, maybe two that had some negative comments, but as you can see, there's very little residents surrounding that 5.5 acres piece of property. It is outside the Sykesville zoned area. It doesn't do anything to Sykesville whatsoever. As you can tell, I strongly recommend we move this in favor of rezoning this to allow them to continue to do the things they're doing, because it's not going to change anything. So.
Well, they can
Provisionally,
continue
of course.
doing what they're doing with the way it's zoned right now. There's no
What's that?
one, so they can continue doing what they're doing at the way the zoning is right now.
They can. And the thing is, it's one of those things, call it what it is. I mean, we're talking, this is a cement and hardtack, piece of property. It's not conservation. Maybe 50 years ago it was, but it will never revert back to a conservation piece of property. So allow them to continue to bank what they need to bank and continue to run, but call it what it is.
And I visited the site. They want to improve the site
Yeah,
and make improvements on it, not leave it the way it is. And they can't do that with the present zoning and for the future use. So I agree with you, Ed. We need to make call it what it
and they're
is.
really good guys.
And I wrote down that there was no community comments here, and
One house. Yeah.
okay, I must have missed that. All right, I've got a motion and a second from Commissioner Boucher. He seconded on the moving this to I-1 provisionally. All right, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, and opposed. Okay, 4-1. Next up.
The next property is I-211-2020-0023. That's Finch Farm Services. The request is ag to I-2. So again, this property, the part of parcel 206, is with the Westminster Municipal Growth Area and currently has a zoning of I-2. The request came in for the balance of the property to also be included in that I-2 designation. So you can see from the map here, the dark purple represents the industrial I-2. They would like the balance of this property to also be in that same designation as the front portion. Environmental constraints are also found along the New Windsor Road stretch, and that's where the forest covers and some of the steep slopes are found on this property. This was a preliminary grading study submitted by the Finches for this property about what is usable and unusable on the entire site. So the front portion, according to this drawing, which is currently zoned industrial, seems to be unusable from their grading study, but it would be the back 13 and the back 10 acres, so 23 acres total they feel would be usable on this property. And again, here's some imagery again. They submitted also an alternative for consideration of I-1 and a reduction in the area, taking a 100-foot buffer along Medford Road and the road to the rear of this property, a 100-foot buffer from there and the road front. We're also there's some slope that prohibits some development on that end to provide a buffer between the community.
I was wondering if we could maybe set this one aside and look at it later, because we have this new plan on it. Basically, I don't think the neighbors have seen the new plan or had a chance to react to it yet. I'd like to hear what they say about it with the buffers and everything else and the usable land and what they're talking about doing. So I mean, I would like to, just my opinion, set this aside, put this information and new information out to the neighbors that live around there and get their feel on it before we take this one up.
I've heard from some of them, and they don't like the first plan and they don't like the second plan. I think it's indifferent to them. Either way, they're not supporting it. I motion we provisionally accept the I-1 modified plan. I think it's a good compromise. I think it was good faith in the owner and their attorney to listen to the discussions we had previously about the I-2 and come back with this modified program. I think that we should reward that effort by them, and I think it's a good compromise. So I motion that we accept the I-1 modification.
Now, with this is surrounded totally by Acres, and Medford Road is here again another paved cow path that has a lot of public safety issues dealing with it as far as accidents and what goes on that road. I can't, even with the buffer here, you know, they have industrial on the front. The rest of it, I think we leave as it is.
I'll second your motion.
Shay, if I can ask some clarification,
Okay.
so then did you suggest the front part stay I2 and the back request become I1, or have the entire property become I1? Because it is one parcel, just one.
Did they
Eric?
request for all of it to be changed to I1 and modify the front? I'm not sure what they exactly request. I didn't realize.
To be honest, it was not 100% clear. We can go seek an additional clarification. I was waiting to see because I thought we were going to set this aside, and if there was a new map, we go back out. So I can check with them on that then.
Then I guess would be a good suggestion to go along with what Commissioner Frazier said, and we can table this and bring it back.
Yeah, that's fine. But I'm going to be quite clear with all four of you. It isn't going to change my mind at all. We haven't heard one person other than the owner that has talked in favor of this. Every single person has said no. Every one. That should seal the deal right there.
Then
100-foot buffer zone around there. You know how much 100 feet is? That ain't much.
Then my recommendation, someone make the motion to turn it down.
Well, I have a problem with it. And if we are going to table this, that means having a complete public hearing again.
It would be just for this property.
Yeah,
Everything else can go through.
right.
So it's not going to be an hour-long public hearing, I
No,
wouldn't think.
but you know, you want to talk about rewinding and watching it again? Because that's exactly what's going to happen.
I think Commissioner Wance has made a very good point. If this board is resolute in its decision to turn it down, then we should turn it down now instead of putting it off till later.
All right.
Yeah,
I mean, that's fine.
This has garnered a whole lot of negativity out there. If we had heard some people say, well, no, wait a minute now, I can see it fitting in here. We didn't hear any of that. Nothing. 100% of the folks that came forward said absolutely not. So that's what's sort of putting me.
Okay.
Listen, and I think we heard from economic development too, saying that this would be prime property out there.
Right.
For that, I get it.
That's big consideration.
And that I understand that, but I just think I think it's just wrong place, wrong time. Maybe something a little lesser, but thinking about putting heavy industrial out there in the middle of this is it's very troubling to me. And I'll go back to the Medford Road thing. It's terrible out
And
there.
the department favorable, so.
Well, we
Yeah,
do have
my thoughts, I mean, Medford Road, that's the biggest concern I have. And it goes back to some of the other conversations, but I do think that I'm not prepared to make a decision on this because the comments made from the community had to do with that original plan. And although I feel like I know what they're going to say, giving them the chance to say it, I think is important.
Okay.
You know, so again, I don't like to agree with Commissioner Frazier too often. It's kind of like bothering me a lot lately, but I have to go once again and lean that way. So.
Did you get visited by some Christmas spirits?
Well, are you going to withdraw your motion, Eric?
Yes, I'll withdraw my motion.
And I withdraw my second.
Okay. So you don't need a motion. You're just suggesting that we table.
That we table this, get this information of the new proposal out to the people that live around the area
Well,
and get their feedback.
all right. Why don't you make that a motion? Let me reconsider.
So moved.
Right. Is there a second? I think there is, right? Yeah, Commissioner Rosti. Okay. I will again say that this is a mission of did you ever watch a show and then say, gosh, I'd like to see that show again, and rewind it and watch it again? Because that's exactly what you're going to hear here.
Braveheart.
And that's why I'm against tabling this and for provisionally making the decision that we need to make. But we'll see how the vote goes. So I got a motion and
I
second
agree.
to table it. We got a motion and second to table it and hear from, due to the provision, hear from, or having a public hearing again on this. All those in favor? And that's 1, 2, 3. All right. And opposed. And that's 3 to 2. So it sneaks by for another public hearing.
Don't get too excited.
Can't wait. So the next property is I-204-2020-0029. So the reason it was called I-2 is the original request was for I-2, so we already had this labeled, but they did change the request from I-2 to I-1. So the request is from ag zoning to I-1. Again, here is an aerial map. The property is located off of Old Westminster Pike, just outside of the corporate limits of Westminster toward the Reese area. The future land use as designated in the 2014 master plan is agriculture. The finding of consistency is that this property was not consistent with the 2014 master plan as amended in 2019. And staff and planning commission gave this a unfavorable recommendation to move to the industrial 1 district. And again, some additional information that this property lies within the Liberty Reservoir watershed. At the August 18th meeting of the Planning Commission, the representation of Ms. Schaefer agreed to revise the requested zoning to the I-1 at that time. And they requested revised boundaries, which I'll show you on the next map, totaling 4.52 acres. So follow me here. The pink outline, which is the bottom layer, is the original zoning request of 5 acres. The new request is the blue boundary shown on the map. The original BZA boundary is just the yellow primary square on this map, and that was 1.8 acres. They came forward and requested an extension, which had a tremendous amount of community opposition, to include the black dashed mark to the rear of this property. Mary, did I articulate that? Do you have anything that you would like to add to my description?
All except for one thing, the 1.8 acres is actually the original yellow rectangle plus that back part that was approved for the extension. The original was roughly 1 acre, and then that strangely shaped dashed line is about 0.8 acres. So currently, their non-conforming use is for the 1.8 acres in the center of the property, and their amended request is for 4.52 acres that go around that blue line.
And
The reason
Linda, you said the community was against that expansion.
Yes, they've been against
Correct.
a lot of the issues with the property. You have received a tremendous amount of comments. Everything, we get calls all the time stating that that community members feel that they're in violation even of their current BZA requirements. So there's been a lot of opposition. And some comments have been made too that that's wonderful that this business is expanding, but maybe they should be somewhere more appropriate with their expansion with this type of industrial trucking business can occur. So there's been a lot of opposition from the community that we've been hearing and that we forwarded to you.
And the opposition has to do with the trucks that are being parked back there.
Everything, trucks, it's a 24/7
Yeah.
operation, impacts to the roadway. And the reason for showing the BZA and the BZA extension is at one point in time, they being the Planning Commission, was looking at maybe just having the zoning encompass just the BZA portion. But then they withdrew that moving forward and just decided to do unfavorable recommendation across the board for this rezoning request.
This property, very familiar with it. It kind of, you have a couple neighbors, yeah, love this, have no problem with it. A lot of the community doesn't like truck traffic. They've tried to expand. Here again, it's, if they keep it the way it is, they're fine forever. The way it's going, if they want to make improvements, $500,000 worth of improvements, they're not going to put it into the zoning as the way it is here. So that's another one of these situations we're falling into that, you can't improve with the present zoning. So they're asking to go to, what is it, I-1? Yeah, on this. So, they keep it the way it is and goes there, or move it to I-1 and make the improvements. So that's about what it amounts to.
Yeah, but the challenge, and unfortunately, we're not adhering to our own guidelines, which is you do not change zoning to adhere to what exists. That's already in place. I mean, we did that with Fogel, and I know we did that. Sometimes just focus on what's right as opposed to, but the guidelines is, and we've been directed, don't look at rezoning just to conform what's already there. And that's kind of what we're being pushed into looking at, is what you just described, Dick.
Well, to a degree, yeah, and they've been there forever. My God, 50, 60 years. And now, it's, the zoning was just ag at that time, probably there before zoning, tell you the truth, as far as trucking industry. And they've changed throughout the history, from building trucks to just parking them and running the cement trucks for Lehigh, a lot of them. So that's what it amounts to. I'm torn, yes. They need to expand and do something more than what they're doing. Make it look better. They have to put the money into it. Would you put that money into it in ag zoning, knowing that if something happens, you can't, it may fall apart. So that's the problem. And it's surrounded by their farms. They own all the property around it. So,
Right. They do own all the property around it. So what could happen? They own all the property around it. I'm against this, to be very frank. I think as long as I can remember, we've received complaints from the neighborhood about this particular piece of property. I believe we've got opposition, a lot of opposition for this when it was put out there. They can keep that on there the way it is. And, every time we're looking at this, not every time, but a lot of times you're saying, they just want to make this better and they can't do it under this zoning. They can. They built what's on here under this zoning. They got the money to do that. They can expand it under this zoning. So that's just an argument I don't like to hear, because, and we've heard it several times today, but they can get the money. It might be more difficult, but it's possible.
well, it's much more
I'm not in favor
difficult
of this.
to get financing for that. And believe me, a bank will look at this as far as financing. Do you have the appropriate zoning to put this on? And a bank will, and it depends on the bank they deal with, but most of them will want the proper zoning to lend $500,000 or $1 million to make it the appropriate area of what they need to do. So I know there's a lot of opposition from the community. Certain ones of them, other ones, I did stop and talk to some. They've been with it for years. They're happy that the fact they're not developing it, not houses are looking at. The others don't want to see trucks coming down the road. So it's catch-22, no matter what you do.
Commissioner Weaver, were the houses there before the trucks, or the trucks there before the houses?
Well, this is a rural community. It's been in existence forever. I think the property, a lot of the houses were there ahead of time. Some of them have been built since. It was a dairy farm and the trucking business for years. And I have a question. I just wonder if these people, a lot of them would rather have the dairy farm there in today's world rather than the trucks, because that would be also the same issue. You'd have smells, odors, insects, and everything from it. So, I'm not sure they say they want the dairy farm, but some of them have been built since the trucks have been there. Others have been there before the trucks. So.
Commissioner Boucher, to also answer your question, all of the homes to the south and east are recognized as historic properties from our historic information. And there is a historic, because there's such a grouping of them, we do identify it as a historic district area. Though it does have no official restrictions because of that, but all of the homes going down do have some type of historic number to them.
Very much. You're a good resource.
I'm considering this the same way that I considered a couple other ones. I didn't get any letters. Now, Dick, as you traveled around out there, you talked to some people, you said, but I haven't had one person write me a letter and say, please let the pools expand. Everything that I've gotten has said, no, leave it the way it is. I also have gotten letters that have stated that some of the things that are on that property have been turned into something other than ag buildings, and they're not sure it was conformed correctly for that as far as fire safety and things are concerned. I don't know if that's true or not, Dick, but that's some of the things that I've gotten.
I went out and looked at that. And the only thing stored in that building was some antique trucks that they had restored and put together. It didn't.
Okay.
Wasn't an issue.
Okay. I mean, I've gone with the people here on a couple of my decisions today, and that's what I'm sticking with on this one. That's my 2 cents. So not my district though. I know you're looking at me. It's your district, Dick. We've given everybody's district who represents the opportunity to make the motion. So.
I'll propose provisional that we move it to I-1.
I'll second it.
Is it 24/7 operations?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's trucks coming in different times. Yeah, and I think one of the issues for the neighbors is a Jake break. And he really has to talk to his drivers and people coming in, speed coming through there and dealing with it. And I think that's got to be talked to, that, yeah, you slow down, you don't come in here at 40 mile an hour and hit the Jake brake to make the turn. Some of that, they have to have that discussion with the drivers.
Yeah. And we are definitely not in position to play favorites whatsoever. But when we start talking about Laney or Fogel and others that have been very strong community partners that have built their workforce to adhere to rules like that because of the community, that goes a long ways. Because I've heard nothing positive about this property to conform to it or to change the zoning. And a lot of it has to do with what you just said. So, okay.
Any more discussion? I got a motion and second to provisionally change it from what it currently is to I-2. All those in favor? I see 2. Those opposed? I see 2. 3. I'll make the motion that does that automatically leave it the same then, I guess? We don't need to make a motion.
Yeah, I think it does.
Yeah, it just stays the same based on that motion then. Okay. All right.
Provisionally.
Okay.
Provisionally, it stays the same.
So
Go
So
ahead.
now, at 35 minutes over what our allotted time was for this afternoon. Our last property for discussion. This property is EC 1320200030. This property has a favorable recommendation from staff, but an unfavorable recommendation from the Planning Commission. Planning Commission deemed this unfavorable because of timing of the rezoning and lack of infrastructure. Staff do concur with the Planning Commission recommendation. Staff was unaware at the time when we were processing this request that the town of Mount Airy was coming through with a simultaneous annexation of the Harrison and Lashir property. And there was also much opposition from the town due to this timing. There are also many community comments, both oral and written, in opposition that were heard at the listening session and the public hearing.
I'll make this real quick. Motion to deny this.
Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry. Say that again.
I just want to wrap this up. I'm on motion to deny this.
I will second that. And just the rest of the story is, it's just not, timing is everything. And it's not ready from the mayor on down. And absolutely agree with you.
All those in favor? I kind of figured that'd be unanimous. That's why I went right there. Okay, went right from 0 to 60. All right. What else you got, Lyndon?
That's it. So we're done with reviewing all of the properties. Our next work session is January 5th at 9 a.m. And so we will, the second round of discussions and see if we'll be ready to take votes moving forward.
Hey, Linda, just want to share again, you and your team did phenomenal. The Planning Commission did wonderful in preparing us. And it's very important, I think, for the community to recognize we didn't just roll over to whatever recommendations were given. And there was a handful that were changed from one to another. But it was because of the preparation that you and the Planning Commission provided and gave us the tools to do. So it was a full-on that plus the community, plus, of course, our discussions to get us to where we are. So really, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I will get with our county administrator, Ms. Wyndham, to discuss steps moving forward. I believe we will have to go in open session and the motions will have to be different. So what we'll do next time is move forward and see if the provisional recommendation still sticks. And then we'll actually have to adopt the maps at a future work session. Each one of these properties is part of an official zoning map, and that's what will have to be adopted.
And Linda, can you give us a copy of what all of our provisional recommendations were in favor and not in favor? Because what I have written down in my book is what I wanted or what I had said. So if you give us are we still on? Okay. I was getting censored over there. So if you give us the ones that we went through these last 3 work sessions, it would be very helpful.
Absolutely. And the last 2 work sessions have been posted on our website. So what I will do is update this and have it posted by before I leave today. And then you will have that to refer to, and I'll send you it in an email as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And then you'll have to schedule a public hearing again for the property out on 31.
Medford Road.
So you'll have to, I guess that one's going to have to be pulled out of the mix because we're never going to have a public hearing by when we want to do the rest of them. So, okay. Just wanted to make sure you all knew that. Okay. All right. Anything else? Roberta, do you have anything? All right. Hearing nothing. Now I will entertain that motion that you made about 8 hours ago, Rothstein, to adjourn. Maybe 7.5 hours. Okay. Everybody have a great holiday. Stay safe. County office buildings here, your county government, with the exception of a few days, will be up and running. And we just want to make sure everyone has a great holiday season. So with that said, I am now officially throwing this at Rothstein, okay? This particular item right here, and he's going to catch it. And all those in favor of adjourning? And that's 6-4 and none against. All right. Safe holiday, everybody. We are officially adjourned for 2020.